Did money flow to Mr. Ellison's campaign a couple weeks later from some of the folks who were in that meeting?
Sure did.
How much? Do we know how much that was?
I do not have that number.
So it wasn't just overlooking the fraud. They were actively trying to make sure this program continued, and then they benefited from that politically with contributions to their campaign, all in this same year, all in 2021. Yeah, this is the template. You see this all the time. The left will tell a lie. We're feeding kids when they're not, when they're just shaking down the taxpayer. The left will tell a lie. The media will report the lie or not report when the truth comes out. And then when you tell the truth,
$250 million vanished. Not used to feed starving children like they promised, but siphoned off into luxury cars, sprawling mansions, and offshore bank accounts, while kids in Minnesota went hungry. And here's the part that should alarm every American watching this. State officials didn't just overlook the fraud. They helped it survive. They ignored warnings, silenced whistleblowers, restarted payments after admitting something was wrong, and then accepted campaign donations from the very people orchestrating the scheme. This is the Feeding Our Future scandal. And what's now coming out through congressional testimony is so blatant, so audacious, and so deeply corrupt it sounds like fiction. Like something out of a crime thriller. Except it isn't. This actually happened. And many of the people responsible are still free, still protected, while the evidence keeps stacking up. If you believe corruption can't sink any lower, if you think fraud on this scale couldn't possibly happen in plain sight, stay with me for the next 3 minutes, because what you're about to see will completely change how you look at this story. And make sure you subscribe, like this video, and share it with anyone who needs to hear the truth. Because this story is being quietly buried by the mainstream media, and it should be dominating the front page.
that they overlooked the fraud. I think it's worse than that. I think they helped it along. I'm going to go to this meeting that took place, or actually I want to go to March 30th, 2021. Is it true back in March of 2021, the Minnesota Department of Education suspended payments to Feeding Our Future, that program? Is that right?
I believe that's correct.
And then a month later, they resumed payments.
That's correct.
What caused them to change their mind?
In my opinion, what caused them to change their mind was pushback from their constituency within the Somali community who accused the state agencies of being racist.
But what caused them to stop it in the first place? Was it whistleblowers coming forward? Was it like this something's not right here? What happened?
Apologize for the misunderstanding. The reason they stopped the funds in the first place is because they had credible allegations that there was fraud taking place. From
whistleblowers and others.
Correct.
They just are doing their job looking, this doesn't make sense. We got all these programs, no one's getting fed, and yet money's going out the door like crazy, so they suspended it. And then they started it back up, right? Was there any threat of a lawsuit from the Somali community and folks affiliated with Feeding Our Future?
Mr. Jordan, there was more than a threat. They actually did.
They did? And what was the alleged claim in that lawsuit?
That they were victims of racial discrimination.
Oh, they played the race card, huh? All this fraud going on, money going out, and they played the race card. Now, when I talked about not just overlooking it, there was a meeting that took place between the Attorney General and affiliates of Feeding Our Future. Is that right?
That is correct.
And what happened at that meeting? Do we know?
Yeah, we do, because we have it on tape. There was an audio recording made at that meeting that was entered into evidence in the Feeding Our Future trial, and it was later revealed through work from Center of the American Experiment, the full recording. And my observations of what took place in that meeting was that Attorney General Keith Ellison was focused on one thing and one thing only, and that was keeping these folks in business. There were no questions that he asked of these folks about how the kids are doing, the operation, how they're getting fed, who's being helped. Instead, the focus was entirely on ensuring that the money continues to flow. And I'll add that he went so far as to say that he was going to fight these people in reference to the state agencies. The state agencies are his client.
Yeah. And when you said money's going to flow, did money flow to Mr. Ellison's campaign a couple weeks later from some of the folks who were in that meeting?
Sure did.
How much, do we know how much that was?
I do not have that number.
So it wasn't just overlooking the fraud. They were actively trying to make sure this program continued, and then they benefited from that politically with contributions to their campaign, all in this same year, all in 2021, when this was all coming to a head. Is that accurate?
That is my understanding.
And this fraud is much bigger than this, because as I look, it's like 6 different federal agencies. Department of Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, Small Business Association, Housing, Urban Development, Department of Labor, Department of Agriculture. In this program and a bunch of others, they were shaking down the entire federal government, it looked like. 6 different federal agencies. I think you pointed out, over the last 15 years?
That's correct.
And not only are the Democrat administration overlooking it, they're helping it along. They're assisting it. They're going after whistleblowers, as your colleague pointed out, and they're benefiting from all this politically with contribution to their campaign. Not to mention the voting issue that you referenced earlier as well. Is that all accurate?
I believe so.
Oh, now there's more than 6 agencies involved. There's 6 federal agencies that got shaken down, but there's 2 other agencies involved now, the FBI and the DOJ. Right? How many people have been indicted now?
I do not have that number in front of me, but it's significant.
I don't know how long y'all been in the legislature. We appreciate your work, appreciate what you do. But have you ever seen anything like this in your time in the legislature? I've never seen anything like this in an AT. Ms. Robbins, you're the chair.
No, sir, we have never seen anything on this scale. It is unbelievable. As Joe Thompson said, it is breathtaking and cannot be overstated.
Yeah, well, God bless you all. Ms. Rankin, or Ms. Rarick, excuse me, I'll give you the last word.
Thank you. So I've been there since 2013, and I have been yelled at by Democrats over and over again throughout our time there to say that there is no fraud, this is just made up.
Yeah, this is the template. You see this all the time. The left will tell a lie. We're feeding kids when they're not, when they're just shaking down the taxpayer. The left will tell a lie. The media will report the lie or not report when the truth comes out. And then when you tell the truth, they call you racist. It's as old as time. We see it all the time. This is so wrong. God bless you all for coming forward and getting the facts to the people of Minnesota and, more importantly, to the people of this great country. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Lynch from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to be clear that fraud is unacceptable at any level. However, I did have an opportunity to spend the day with a bunch of my kids in my district at my local Head Start Center in Quincy and the Wahlberg Center. And they actually are able to feed those kids breakfast, lunch, and a snack for $6 a day. And I just want to say from this committee, this investigative committee, if we're really looking for fraud, if we're truly looking for fraud, in addition to all the cases that Mr. Ballou listed, we don't need to go far. I can even suggest the address, 1600 Pennsylvania Ave. If we're looking for fraud in this country, that's a great place to start. That's a gold mine for looking for fraud. And I'll just give one example. You know,
the Feeding Our Future scandal stands as one of the largest fraud operations ever uncovered in American history. More than $4 billion in federal funds, money meant to feed vulnerable children in Minnesota's Somali community, was diverted into a sprawling criminal network built on fake meal sites, invented children, and sophisticated money laundering schemes. The sheer boldness of the fraud is hard to grasp. Organizations claimed they were feeding tens of thousands of children every single day at locations that either barely existed or didn't exist at all. One site reported serving 5,000 meals daily from a building that could only hold 300 people. Another billed the government for feeding hundreds of children at a closed storefront with boarded-up windows. The numbers weren't just suspicious, they were physically impossible. When whistleblowers finally raised the alarm, the Minnesota Department of Education initially acted responsibly. On March 30, 2021, payments were suspended after officials found credible evidence of fraud. But just weeks later, those payments resumed. Why? Feeding Our Future accused the state of racial discrimination, and state officials immediately backed down. Then the situation became even more disturbing. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, the state's top law enforcement officer, held a private meeting with Feeding Our Future affiliates. A recording of that meeting, later introduced as trial evidence, revealed Ellison wasn't pressing them about the fraud. He wasn't asking about the children, the meal sites, or who was actually being served. His sole concern was keeping these organizations operational and ensuring the money kept flowing. He even pledged to fight the very state agencies attempting to stop the fraud, agencies he was legally obligated to represent. Weeks later, those same affiliates donated to Ellison's campaign. Let that sink in. The Attorney General met with individuals under investigation for fraud, promised to support them, and then accepted campaign donations from them. That isn't oversight. That's corruption, and this scheme didn't stop with one program. The network systematically defrauded 6 federal agencies: Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, the Small Business Administration, Housing and Urban Development, the Department of Labor, and the Department of Agriculture. This theft went on for 15 years, while Minnesota officials didn't just ignore it, they helped it continue. Now the FBI and the Department of Justice are involved. Dozens of people have been indicted. The evidence is overwhelming. Minnesota legislators have testified that they've never witnessed fraud on this scale in their entire careers. The magnitude of it is staggering. For years, anyone who raised concerns was shouted down. Lawmakers dismissed warnings as racist. They claimed the fraud didn't exist. It's a familiar strategy: claim to help vulnerable communities, silence whistleblowers with accusations, threaten lawsuits when investigators intervene, and then steal hundreds of millions meant for hungry children. This wasn't incompetence. This wasn't bureaucratic waste. This was deliberate, calculated protection of criminals by elected officials who benefited politically through campaign contributions. The testimony is public. The recordings exist. The donations are documented. This is criminal conduct, shielded by officials who allowed it to continue while profiting from it politically.